Well, over the past 50 years, Father Gabriel Amorth has conducted 70,000 exorcisms. Now, he says he's seen the possessed spit out shards of glass, fingers of iron, and even rose petals as he has tried to free them. Does the devil exist? Reverend James Gracie, Minister for the Free Church Continuing, which is an offshoot of the We Free, as some people used to call it. Does the devil exist?
Yes, I do believe the devil exists. I believe the devil exists not because the Vatican says so, or the man you've referred to there says so, but because the Bible is very clear that the devil exists.
Who or what is the devil?
The devil is a fallen angel. Jude speaks about an angel who never kept his first estate. It is through him that sin came into the world. The Bible is able to tell us not only where we came from, but where sin came from. And the devil was the one who came and tempted our first parents in the garden. The devil today, though, I must stress, is a defeated foe. Some people think of good and evil as though this is some kind of equal contest. It's not an equal contest. The devil has been defeated. There was a curse placed upon him in Genesis.
Well, if you look around the world, there's still a lot of evil going on. You wouldn't believe that the devil is... The devil's still at work, isn't he?
Oh, yes.
Can the devil appear in body, or corporeal form, as they put it? Can the devil appear as a person or an animal, do you believe?
It's difficult to say that he would appear as a person. He can appear as forms. But very often, the devil would... when the Lord came into this world, the devil appeared and took possession of people. There was definitely that. But the devil, his head was crushed by the cross. When Christ came into this world to destroy the works of the devil. And therefore, the devil is a defeated enemy. And therefore, the Christian is able to rejoice. And John says he doesn't touch you.
Okay. And you were saying... He's very relieved about that, obviously. But do you believe the Pope is the Antichrist?
Well, I believe that the Scripture tells us that there is an Antichrist.
You don't mind me saying, but when we had a cup of coffee earlier on, you said that you thought...
Yes, the devil will ultimately be seen to appear in a form. The Bible tells us that. And I believe that Thessalonians, it speaks about the one who takes, who is the Antichrist, claims to be take the seat of Christ.
O Lord, a fortified tower, in the face of the enemy. Let the enemy have no power over us. And the son of iniquity be punished.
Suzanne, there's a lot of evil in the world. You're a humanist, but, you know, maybe the devil... sorry, Julia, I do beg your pardon.
I forgive you. My son.
Good line. There's a lot of evil in the world. How else do you explain some of the things that humanity does to humanity?
Well, I think they can be explained far more rationally. It was a very interesting story you told just there. Not one for putting the children to bed at night with, but that's the whole idea of it, isn't it? I mean, the concept of the devil is used to control people, to instill fear into people. But as a society, we actually have started to use the concept of the devil and evil as a way of disassociating ourselves from people who do bad things.
Reverend John Wilmer, you've exorcised these evil spirits, haven't you? Tell her what you've seen.
Most of what I've seen is very simple, very normal. But I've seen a few things which, as a mathematician, have no rational explanation. In a Zambian village, a woman started to be prayed for. She was on the floor, screaming, and my wife said, "Come over and listen to this." And a voice spoke through her in Oxbridge English, saying, "Go away, I'm not leaving this person." A Zambian would have said, "Go away, I'm not leaving this person." No one in that village, except the priest, spoke English. There's no explanation for this sort of thing. I've been to buildings, factories, pubs where there have been problems, and after prayer there's been quiet and peace. On one occasion, a force so strong left a building that it knocked over the person who was standing beside me. On another occasion, a woman was taken over by a word. She was threatened to commit suicide, and she said, "Asmodeus." Now, I didn't know who Asmodeus was at that stage, but I found him in the dictionary. He's an evil spirit in the book of the Apocrypha, in the book of Tobit, who incites to suicide and murder. And I took her suicide bid rather more seriously after that, and we were able to help her.
Once again, interesting stories, but show us the evidence for it. I mean, we have Father Gabriel Amorth claiming that people are vomiting shards of glass, big, long, pointy instruments coming out of their throats. 6 people holding somebody down while he gives them an exorcism. Now, put a video of that onto YouTube. You'll convert a few people if you can believe it. But the fact of the matter is,
whether you believe in them or not, demonic possessions can be classified as a strange phenomenon that has occurred in practically every culture for thousands of years. Modern technology now allows the world to document these supposed possessions in a way that history has never let us before. Take a look at these potential cases of demonic possession and let me know if you think evil spirits can take control of our own bodies against our will. Chills. Number 10. The televised possession. Did you know that a real exorcism was aired live on television in the early 1990s? ABC aired The Exorcism on their news show, 2020. It covered Gina, a 16-year-old girl living in Wellington, Florida, who had been in and out of psychiatric wards after seeing demons. It soon becomes clear early on that Gina's supposed demons aren't going out without a fight. First, the priests literally have to hold her down. They even insist that she will levitate if they let her go. The rough handling only seems to make Gina even angrier for a while. Soon she calms down long enough to briefly talk about her situation. Apparently 10 vicious demons are taking turns controlling her every day, she says. 2 of the demons she named were called Zion and Minga. Whether or not Zozo was one of the 10 was never revealed. Soon after mentioning them by name, her possession kicks into high gear.
God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit.
She looks very intimidating, especially for such a young country girl, but the raw hatred in her eyes wasn't enough to deter the priest from going through with the exorcism as planned. They recite prayers while she recites prophecies of war and destruction. One priest describes simultaneously feeling the power of God mixed with the power of evil as the supernatural forces fought each other for supremacy. After a long time, the spiritual intervention was finally over. In an interview 2 months after this episode aired, Gina describes herself as feeling much better now. The news story has never been picked up since, so who knows if Gina's change really lasted, or what has happened to her in the years since. So at first glance, this looks like it could be a real exorcism, but then again, it could be an instance of a news program taking advantage of a troubled girl and her family for ratings. There's no doubt that the priests believe Gina is possessed, and Gina herself is certainly not faking it, but there is just no way to tell if demons were really at work here, or if a group of overly religious people were being deceived by their own blind faith. Number 9. The Chosen One. As this exorcism footage goes to show, Christians aren't the only ones plagued by spiritual possessions. Here you see a supposedly possessed woman trembling under the power of group prayer, and it all begins with a single concerned-looking rabbi kneeling before her. The rabbi observes her for a bit, then he stands up and says something to the crowd. Under his orders, they surround the possessed woman and begin to chant as one. It all starts out quietly, but soon it grows louder and louder as the woman convulses before them, thrashing wildly. As the camera pans out, you can see that many rabbis have gathered here to perform this exorcism. The fact that they have so many religious leaders present indicates that whatever is inside of her must be very powerful. The religious chanting intensifies as the woman starts to cry out in pain. The rabbis continue to vigorously shake their fists at her while shouting for her demons to leave her body at once.
Any ritual that is taking a vulnerable person and an impressionable person and doing this to them is another form of abuse. It is not a cure.
Okay.
Well, hang on. Rob, you're a psychiatrist. If I may, I hope you don't mind. I'll let you. Obviously, you can come back in later on. But you're a psychiatrist. Are these mental health issues that we're hearing about here? These possessions?
I think there are situations where the person's very distressed. I think what I would say is that they're not schizophrenia, for example. A lot of people think, oh, demon possession is the same as schizophrenia. And all of the people I've seen with schizophrenia have schizophrenia. I've travelled overseas. I've spoken to senior psychiatrists who've travelled overseas into places where demons and exorcism are more common, and schizophrenia is still schizophrenia. But I would also pick up on what the lady's saying over there, which is that if a deliverance ministry is used, it should be respectful to the person. You know, what we're saying here is we're saying that if you believe in the devil and if you believe in God...
Do you believe in the devil?
I do believe in the devil. And I would say the devil is a beaten force. I would agree with the Reverend Tuolong. Yeah. Is that if Jesus has beaten the devil, then if we're to do deliverance ministry, we ought to be doing it in a way that's respectful to the person. Because often they're a person who's had a number of difficulties in their lives.
Does that mean not filming it and putting it on YouTube? That's not respectful.
I don't think that's helpful. And no, it's probably not very exciting either.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I thought you might disagree with that. Yes, sir.
Well, it's certainly said that the devil's greatest trick is to convince you that he doesn't exist. So I think you've bought that hook, line and sinker. But I'd certainly agree with what the Reverend across said. Not the part about the Pope being the Antichrist. I wouldn't agree with that at all. But the part that the devil is definitely a beaten force and that you know, God and the Church will be victorious.
Forehead and gives her a sharp command to leave.
So we left the curse. We left the curse. Say it! We left the curse.
We lit the gates.
A fire and death.
We've been here today.
Oh.
As the exorcism wears on, the alleged demon appears to be losing its resolve. Eventually, it succumbs and leaves the woman's body. The renewed woman hugs the Reverend while the crowd cheers on. Of course, these people could have been lying in order to get attention, or maybe they have legitimate mental disorders that make them think demons are lurking inside of them. They could even be paid actors working for Bob Larson to make him seem like a real exorcist when he is not one. On the other hand, however, they could actually be possessed. Once again, it's very hard to tell if these are true or not. Number 3, Pope Francis. Many regard this as the most clear-cut evidence for demonic possession of all time. Pope Francis is offering his blessings at St. Peter's Square in Rome. When he places hands on a man who is very troubled indeed, nobody in the crowd knew that the Pope was moments from performing a public exorcism, not even Francis himself. The person in the wheelchair is a 47-year-old Mexican father of 2, named Angel. Angel says that he has been possessed by demons as far back as 1999. So far, 10 exorcists have been unable to rid him of his demons, though they have all tried no less than 30 times. When Pope Francis lays hands on him, this is the end result.
Yes, Professor.
Yes, I think we have to distinguish a few issues here. When you talk about the devil, you find that in all religions it's an effort to put a name on a force which we are not controlling.
Do you believe in the devil?
No, I believe in God, but I also believe that there's evil, and I believe in distinction of the existence of evil also in a lot of unexplainable things which I've seen and heard of, that people are, as you call it, demon possessed. But these are names which we put on certain stages.
Professor Jean, if you believe in, if I may, sorry, but if you believe in because some people say, oh, it's a lot of Old Testament nonsense. This is in the New Testament. There are references aplenty to the devil in the New Testament. So if you believe the New Testament, surely you have to believe that the devil exists.
Well, I'm not eating a menu here. Here it has to do with thinking about what the New Testament, the Old Testament, and many other important religious documents challenges with. Their challenge is to understand how human beings deal with freedom and how they, in freedom, can decide to do evil things and to do good things. Now, the thing is that when we do evil things, that they have consequences, even consequences independent of us. Like, as a German born 10 years after the Holocaust has consequences for my life. And so I think it's important to see that we are all victims of evil. Okay. And it is important how we deal with that. But I think we should not confuse here this kind of demon possession names to devils.
Yes, young man, yeah.
The devil is a thing, I think, that the Church has used to explain the unknown. It has taken evil and it has turned it into another being. It's a way of explaining something that they just can't understand. And I think it is a form of abuse to get someone who's clearly ill and exorcise them and ritual.
I think that's absolutely outrageous. I've seen many people who've been healed of things like ME other illnesses after they've had prayer and release in these ways. And people whose buildings are in trouble, a publican, a factory owner who was absolutely terrified and his workforce were terrified, they are immensely grateful. There's no abuse in this. Sometimes it's a very frightening work. We had a man who arrived and turned over our dining room table while I went out to see his wife who he'd attacked. I came back and found 4 policemen trying to hold him down.
And there was a superhuman strength.
There is a superhuman strength there, just like in Mark chapter 5.
Val, you write, he's brilliant.
Could I tell you a little bit about Satan? Yes. Although the matter is a little esoteric, but I told you all about it in the book of Job.
There are 3 books in the Bible known as the wisdom literature: Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. The first, Proverbs, showed us that God is wise and just.
Yeah, we learned that God has ordered the world so that it's fair. The righteous are rewarded, the wicked are punished. In other words, you get what you deserve.
But then we meet Ecclesiastes, who observes, people don't always get what they deserve.
Yeah, he said the world isn't always fair, that life is unpredictable and hard to comprehend, just like smoke.
And this makes you wonder, okay, well, is God wise and just?
Exactly. And so it's that question that is being explored in the final book of wisdom, Job.
Where you will see that in the court of heaven, Satan is the district attorney. He is not, as Christians imagine, the enemy of heaven.
All right, let's dive in.
So Job begins with a strange story that takes place up in the heavens, which are described something like a heavenly command center.
He is not, as Christians imagine, the enemy of heaven and the enemy of mankind. He's merely the person who sees the bad side of things and carries out the dirty work.
So God is there with these angelic creatures called the sons of God, and they're all there reporting for duty.
And God points out this guy Job, his servant, showing how righteous and good he is.
And then one of these angelic creatures approaches. He's referred to in Hebrew as the Satan.
The Satan? Who is this?
Well, this word is actually a title, which literally means the one who is opposed.
And therefore, he saw Job and wondered whether Job really was as great a guy as he seemed to be, and suggested that God should appoint a committee of investigation to find out.
So out of this whole crew, he is the one questioning how God is running the world. And he proposes that Job might not actually love God, that he's only a good person because God rewards him. If God were to take away all of the good things he gave to Job, then we would see his true colors.
And the committee did its work very thoroughly, but the case went against Satan because it was proved in the end that Job was an honorable man.
So he thinks Job is just working the system?
That's exactly right. Maybe he's obeying just to get what he wants.
So God agrees to this experiment and allows the Satan to inflict suffering on Job.
And Job loses everyone and everything that he cares about. It is devastating. And remember, he deserves none of this. God himself said so.
The remarkable thing is that in the midst of all this suffering, Job still praises God.
At least for chapters 1 and 2. But then in chapter 3, we find out how he's really feeling inside. He unleashes this poem that reveals this devastation. It's a long, elaborate curse on the day that he was born.
Now, you notice that although we pay the salary of the district attorney, whenever there's a great criminal case before the public eye, people begin to take the side of the underdog. And the prosecutor always has less public sympathy than the defense, except in political trials. On the right hand of God, and you know the defense is always on the right hand of the judge in court, is our only mediator and advocate, which is the phrase referring to Jesus Christ our Lord. So there is the defense and there is the prosecution. And it is the function of Satan to be the prosecutor. There is a good deal more to it than that, because before all this started, as in a stage play, there was an arrangement in the green room before coming on stage in which certain things were understood, but that are only to be revealed when the curtain goes down at the end of the play.